Okay, here we go. To this point in this series of videos, we tried to figure out if the word that is actually really a relative pronoun, and we tried to figure out is the so-called relative clause actually a relative clause. And we got to the point where we're at the fourth grammatical function of the word that. And to help us answer those questions, we want to look at the word that in the fourth grammatical function from three different perspectives: abstract, integral, and isolated. And we're going to discover a whole lot of good stuff, okay? We're going to discover things. Now, we've already looked at the word that on the abstract level. We came up with the term abstract proform, and we looked at it on the integral level, on the surface level. We came up with the term associator, right, which I really like. But now let's look at the word that on the isolated level, from the isolated perspective. In other words, isolated meaning occurring alone. Now here we have our sample sentence. The book that is blue is damaged. And that's a genuine clause. This is what I call it, a genuine clause. It's sometimes referred to as a main clause or an independent clause, but I call it genuine. It can stand alone at any time. It can stand alone. A genuine clause is a full sentence structure that does not function within another sentence structure. It can stand alone, okay? Now, I call the other type of structure synthetic, right? That's what I call it, synthetic. Synthetic meaning devised, arranged, or fabricated for special situations to imitate or replace usual realities. It's not genuine and it cannot stand alone. You can have a synthetic clause, phrase, even a synthetic subject, or a synthetic predicate, which we'll talk about later. But anyway, those are my new terms. Now, to do the word that at the isolated level or perspective, okay, we take our sentence, the book that is blue is damaged, okay? Now, we ask, can any part of this sentence be removed or extracted such that the clause will remain genuine? That is, the clause will maintain its genuine clause status. Like I said, in traditional, they would say independent or main, okay? So here we go. We look at it. We looked at it for a long time. The book that is blue is damaged. And the only thing we could find, we took out one word, we took out two words, we took out three. We just kept taking things out. And the only thing that can be removed from that sentence and have it remain a genuine clause is these three words. That is blue. All right? This can be removed. And you say, oh, I know that. That's a relative clause. Okay, well, that's the whole point. We see that the phrase here, all right, that is blue, can be removed and you'll still have a genuine clause. The book is damaged. It can stand on its own. The book is damaged. It can stand on its own. All right? Now, so we isolated the phrase, or you would say the traditional relative clause, that is blue. It's semantically relevant, okay? It's semantically relevant. It gives a little extra information, but it's syntactically, in other words, sentence structure-wise, expendable, right? Now, I say that to say this. To this point, if you followed what I'm saying, you might agree that the word that is not really categorically a pronoun, all right? So we're getting to the point now where we finally say, well, what is this relative clause thing? What is it really? Well, the book that is blue is damaged, all right? You're tired of hearing that, right? We extracted, we pulled out, we removed this, we pulled it out. Okay, this is the isolated perspective. We pulled it out, and we're looking at it. We see that is blue. We have our associator, Remember the previous video? It's the associator, the word that. And we have kind of a predicate or a phrase. It's synthetic. It can't stand on its own. It's synthetic. It is not genuine, but it's a good thing. That is blue. Okay? What is this structure? It's a distinction phrase. Or you could call it a distinction predicate. It's only a partial predicate, but you can call it that. All right? Now, here's another sentence. The plant that he purchased was a rose. The only thing we can pull out, we studied this, we looked at it, and the only thing we can pull out is that he purchased. That's the only thing we can remove that will allow this to remain a genuine clause. The plant was a rose. It can stand on its own. The plant was a rose. Or you leave it in. The plant that he purchased was a rose. Either way, it's a genuine clause, and that's very important. Okay, genuine. So here we have a little subject there, a little verb, and you have an actually clause. It's a small clause. It's synthetic. It can't stand on its own. It's synthetic, but it's a clause. So we have a distinction clause. We now finally, after all these videos, we have a term, a phrasal term for relative clause, and I think it's superior. If you just think about it, study it, and let me know what you think. We have either a distinction phrase, all right, or a distinction clause. I worked on this for a long time, and I'm only now talking about it because people think I'm crazy. Right now, distinction's the key word. In previous videos, I spoke the word distinguishing, and I said, hold that thought. I said distinguishing, hold the idea, because it's very, very important. Distinction is the key word in this whole series of videos. Now, if you want to call the word that some kind of term here in its fourth grammatical function, you could call it a distinctive. You could make this into a noun if you want to. You could say, oh, that's a distinctive. It's kind of a weird word, though. All right? It's like the traditional word relativizer for the relative clause. I don't like that word at all. It's hard to pronounce and it's crappy anyway. So distinctive, if you'll excuse me, I'm freezing in here, hence the vest and the actual shirt. Distinctive means serving to set apart from others, or serving to characterize, or having a given distinction. And then, of course, the word distinction, the key word here in this whole series, is the quality of being distinguishable, or it can mean distinguishing mark. So you could call the word that in its third, the third term in its fourth grammatical function. You could call it a distinctive, but I like distinction indicator, which is what I use. I've been using it, distinction indicator. Okay? The word that, all right, the word that in its meta form, not basic form, in its meta form, all right, as a meta function, indicates that a distinction phrase or a distinction clause will follow. The word that indicates that a distinction phrase or a distinction clause will follow. And after having worked on this for a long, long time, that is the best I can do. I couldn't find anybody on the internet or in any books, grammar books. I used to have a crap load of grammar books. I couldn't find anybody who went deep and studied this. Now there's a guy out west. I won't mention his name. I emailed him. I wrote to him and said, hey, I'm working on this thing. And he's a doctorate. He has a PhD. And I said, I have this idea, blah, 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 blah. And he didn't even have the decency to write back because I'm a nobody. So instead of a relative clause, in my warped mind, I have a distinction phrase or a distinction clause. You could even call the distinction clause a distinction phrase if you want to really narrow it down. It's up to you. I don't care. But I like both. I like to have both handy. But the key thing is, right, just like the traditional relative clause, It is not genuine. It is not genuine. It can't stand alone. It will never stand alone. It can't do it. It's synthetic. It cannot stand alone. And that's about it. I think we're ready to move on to the fifth grammatical function. I'll do that in the next few videos, and then I'll wrap it up, kind of summarize. And so thanks for being patient, and I hope this is helpful in some way. Once I do my summary, you'll see how it fits in. Kind of fits in really nicely. All right. So thanks for being incredibly patient and enduring these ultra low technology videos. Good night.